Taking Sides by Gary Soto, Chapter 3. Drive! Step on it! Move an elbow into his face! Coach Sutis yelled from the edge of the court. Moisture darkened his underarms and gathered on his brow. Sweat made his thinning hair flatten and hang down. For the coach, watching his players was as exhausting as playing. He ran up and down the court, shouting plays through cupped hands and slapping a clipboard against his thighs when a play was executed poorly. The 2-hour workouts were intense. Shafts of afternoon sunlight glared on the polished gym floor. Today's practice featured the A team, the first stringers, against the B team, the players who sat on the bench chewing their fingernails during the regular games. Come on, Durkin, get in his face, the coach scowled. Mendoza, move your can. The basketball echoed in the Columbus Junior High School gym where banners of the teams' championship years, 1980, 1987, and 1989, hung from the rafters. Bukowski, breathe on him. Maneuver left, now cut. Grady, press. Shoes squeaked as the players hustled up and down the court. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the heater blew warm, dusty air. A few students sat cross-legged on the floor, books piled in their laps, watching. In a far corner, 3 cheerleaders bounced from foot to foot, chanting, "Hey, hey, what do you say?" It was practice hour for them, too. Lincoln blew past the center, Grady, and leaping to his left, slammed the ball through the hoop. He came down hard, jamming his already hurt toe. He stopped for a moment, grimacing, then hobbled after the other players, a spark of pain flashing into his foot. "Come on," Coach hissed, as he ran his hands through his hair. He blew a whistle that hung on a chain around his wrist and whacked the clipboard against his thigh. The players came to a stop. The sound of their breathing filled the gym as they stood with hands on their hips. One player knelt down on one knee, but he rose when Coach gave him an angry look. The cheerleaders, oblivious to the game, raised their arms and screamed, "Mendoza, take a seat. Buckley, come in." Lincoln trotted slowly to the bench, where he took a seat between the 2 remaining players, both second stringers with skinny legs, and smothered his face in a towel. A thin line of sweat snaked down his arm. The hair on his thighs was matted to his skin. He took off his left shoe and sock and rubbed his toe gingerly. He turned to the player who was keeping score and asked, "How many buckets did I get?" The player looked down at the score sheet. 4. And 2 free throws. "How's your leg?" "It's my toe. Hurts bad." The 2 of them looked briefly at the toe and then turned their attention back to the game. The A team was up by 7, 22-15. Coach is going to be upset, Lincoln thought. The A team should be clobbering the second stringers. Lincoln wiped his face and froze when the coach said, "Mendoza, put your shoe back on." "Who do you think you are? Someone special? Magic Johnson? James Worthy?" "I hurt my toe." "Poor baby. He hurt his itsy-bitsy toe." None of the players laughed with Coach. Lincoln stared angrily at the coach, who turned away with a smirk. "Who do you think you are?" Lincoln thought as he slipped his hurt foot back into his shoe. A spark of pain flared when he tugged on the laces. Lincoln couldn't understand why Coach was always on his back. He was always on time to practice, and he was never a loudmouth like Bukowski or Durkins. He never complained about his injuries either. In last week's game, the one that kept Columbus in the league race, he got jabbed in the eye. On purpose, he thought, because he was slamming at the boards. But he just blinked until the pain lessened, and he let his eye tear until his vision returned to normal. Another time, he sprained a finger, but that didn't stop him from scoring 13 points. Lincoln grunted as he yanked at his laces, sweat dripping from his face and dotting the floor around him. He breathed in deeply and jogged slowly back to the center court along with 2 guys from the bench. Immediately, Lincoln scored a basket on a sweet 3-second-in-the-air layup, but he was fouled with a stinging slap to the wrist. He missed at the free throw line, and for the remaining minutes of the first half, he went without another basket. At halftime, the coach went into his office to use the telephone. He returned a few minutes later to scold the players for their poor defense and slow breaks. "Think. You're just going through the motions." Lincoln thought of Vicky, his ex-girlfriend. She was smart too, but she was different from Monica. Maybe a little taller, maybe more social. But he couldn't say for sure. Both were Mexican-American and cute, but at this point, neither was part of his life. They stopped at the 7-Eleven and bought another pack of corn nuts and a Slurpee where they shared, lapping up the sweetness of cherry-flavored ice. Lincoln licked the salty cornnuts from his palm. Lincoln told James he had to get home to start dinner. There were potatoes to peel, and Flacco would need company. Before he got hurt, Flacco had spent his days roaming and sniffing the lawns of the new neighborhood. But now Flacco stayed around the porch in the backyard and slept under the pear tree, unnoticed by the neighbor's cat, who sometimes climbed over the fence to eat from his bowl. As Lincoln turned onto the block, their neighbor to the north, Mr. Shulman, was pulling his Mercedes into his driveway. Lincoln said hi as he passed Mr. Shulman, who was getting out of his car with the bulging briefcase, his arm pinching a large black book against his chest. The neighbor said hello and turned away in a fit of coughing. His belly wiggled over his belt, and even in half darkness, Lincoln could see that Mr. Shulman was not a happy man. Flacco was sitting on the front lawn. When he heard Lincoln's footsteps, he beat his tail against the grass and tried to walk despite his bandaged front leg. Lincoln hugged his dog and ran a hand through his dusty fur. He pulled out a leaf, caught in his collar, and said, "My foot hurts too." "You gotta hang, my man." The dog had been a gift from Lincoln's father when he and his mother separated. Lincoln had been 7, and he had cried when his father left the house with a small TV and boxes of clothes. He saw his father now and then, but mostly his contact with him was through letters and birthday cards thick with $1 bills. Once his father had sent him a pair of boxing gloves, which he and Tony had laced up to beat each other silly for 2 hours straight. But that was years ago. His father was now living in Los Angeles, and Lincoln and his mother were in Northern California in a dull suburb that went to sleep at 9 o'clock sharp. Together, Flacco and Lincoln walked up the steps slow because of Flacco's bandaged leg and went in the front door. The steam of cooking beans and potatoes uncurled into the air, fogging up the windows. Lincoln threw his backpack on the couch and called out, "Hi, Mom, you home early?" "I'm in here." His mom was in the kitchen pounding around steak with a knife he had bought for her birthday. He realized a knife was not a sentimental gift, but he liked the way it looked with a black handle and a dime-bright blade, so sharp it could split a hair 9 ways, or so he imagined. "I was done with work, cansada," he said. She was in a jogging suit. Her hair was tied back in a bandana, and her feet were smothered into rabbit slippers he had bought her last Christmas. "Mijo, Tony called. He wants you to call back." Lincoln turned down the radio, which was playing Marvin Gaye's "I Heard It Through the Grapevine." What did he want? "I forgot to remind him this morning he still owes me $2. "No sé, llámalo." "Why does he owe you $2? The oven door squeaked open, and his mother brought out a large black frying pan that Lincoln always thought must be from Mexico. Lincoln had seen white people cook with chrome or copper-colored fry pans, but every Mexican mother Lincoln knew cooked her groceries into savory delights in black cast-iron pans. "It's an old bet. Remember when the Niners were playing, Mom?" "No," she said. "It was a bet on the game, and he never paid." Lincoln went to the sink and got himself a tall glass of water. His mother noticed his limp and asked, "¿Qué tu pasó en la pierna?" "What happened to your leg?" He laughed. He caught his breath after drinking long and hard and said, "It's my toe. I hurt it again in practice. You should soak it and rest. I got us a video for tonight. The birds." "I saw it, but I'll see it again." Lincoln got another glass of water and this time drank slowly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Flacco pawing the pantry door. "¿Tienes hambre?" Lincoln asked as he bent down on one knee and took Flacco's head into his hand. He ruffled Flacco's fur and combed it with his hand. "Mom, what's the word for dog food in Spanish?" His mother stopped and looked at the wall. Brow pinched and thought, "No sé. Ask your Spanish teacher." Lincoln opened a can of dog food and scooped it out with a spoon. As he sat down in a chair to watch Flacco eat, he realized how tired he was. His toe throbbed. His wrist, slapped by Durkins in the first period, was bruised, and his arm hurt from when he caught an elbow while working inside under the hoop. He decided to take his mom's suggestion and soak his foot. As the bathtub filled with water, he decided to soak his whole body. He threw in handfuls of bubble bath and laughed as the pink suds grew mountainous. "I deserve this," he said to himself as he lowered his body in the water. Ah, it's hot. While he rested in the water, steaming rising like smoke from incense, he read the sports section of the newspaper. The Warriors had lost again, but they were the team to stand by. The Lakers, good as they were, with players like Magic Johnson and the spirit of recently departed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, were to be hissed at. The, the Warriors, he thought, were like his old school Franklin. Franklin was a poor school, grim and sad because the kids were poor, but scrappy like the Warriors. The Lakers are like his new school, rich and full of the right moves. Lincoln was drying off when he heard his mother say, "Andale, muchacho, apurate, y saca al flaco," and take Flaco outside. Lincoln scrubbed his hair dry with a towel and stepped back into his jeans. He put on a fresh t-shirt and read, "Hey," and barefoot, hurried to the kitchen. He tugged Flaco by the collar, put him out, and said, "Come on, chamaco." Mother and son ate in silence. They were tired and hungry, and talking would keep them from slicing through steaming carne asada and scooping up frijoles and papas in rips of warm tortilla. His milk went down cold. His mother sipped from her glass of water. When Lincoln finished his first helping, he said, "Ah, Mom, that was good." And he helped himself to a second helping of frijoles and another tortilla. Only when they were finished did they let Flaco back in. Flaco dragged his leg and whined for a small taste of dinner. "¿Qué quieres?" Lincoln whispered with his mother when his mother got up to answer the telephone in the hall. He snatched a flag of meat from the pan and Flaco leapt for it, hurt leg and all. His mother returned to the kitchen. "Ay Dios, que gente. These people. They think money grows on trees. You give once to a charity and now everyone calls." Almost every evening, some group, the Democratic Party, the veterans of foreign wars, schools, the handicapped, called asking for money. "It's because we live in a better part of town now, Mom." "A lo mejor. Maybe." The phone rang again, and this time it was his mom's new boyfriend, Roy. Lincoln listened to the mother say, "Yes, sounds good. No, you're silly. So we'll go out Friday with Lincoln?" Flaco looked at Lincoln, and Lincoln looked at the wall. He didn't like it when his mother dated men who flinched when a dog barked, and Flaco barked a lot. After Lincoln washed the dishes, he pushed in the video cassette, and they sat together on the couch, his mother with a cup of coffee, Lincoln with an ice cream drumstick, and Flaco with the milk bone.